Am I? Say ah.
Ah, say ah.
Okay.
So we are working on our oral histories project. Today is November 20th, 2018, and I am Kathleen Feldkamp Graddy, and we are interviewing my father, Reno J. Feldkamp. And so, Dad, I was wondering, do you have an earliest memory?
Okay. Thanks for a little warning. The earliest memory I really have, I believe, I was about 4, and the lights came on. The house had been wired, and the power company, Consumer Power Company, they turned the lights on, they turned the power on, and we had electric lights. Just one light bulb hanging down from the ceiling, and it was nice.
I imagine there was a lot of excitement about that.
Oh yes, it was a big deal.
So before that, what kind of lighting? Probably kerosene lamps.
Oh yes.
And in the barns too, you had to deal with lanterns.
Yes.
And that, do you remember any danger about that?
Oh yeah. Yeah, barns burned when the lantern got away.
Yeah.
You wait for Chicago fire when
Mrs.
cow
O'Leary
kicked the lantern over, raised her tail and said, "There'll be a hot time in the old town tonight."
Yeah. Yeah. So what is your best memory of childhood, do you think?
Association with other kids. I had some cousins, the Spiegelover family, Wilma and Leonard were near me in age. Hazel was a little older, and really enjoyed getting together with that family. Just being with them and running around and getting into mischief, probably.
Yeah, probably. So you went to school at the Sharon Schoolhouse here on Pleasant Lake Road.
Correct.
And what is one of your best memories from that?
The best memories from that. Probably the Christmas programs. I had a wonderful teacher, Berdella Brightonwisher, and she was Berdella Flood by the time I was in the 7th grade, I believe. And she was really an outstanding teacher, and she did wonders about putting together a Christmas program, and we had a big time. It was a really big event of the year, of the Christmas season, was the Christmas program at school.
Mm-hmm. And I imagine all the parents came.
Oh yeah. The neighboring districts, people would come in because of Verdella's reputation for being so good at this sort of thing. They packed the place, and everybody had a great time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember her. She taught at Nellie Ackerson Elementary School when I went to school there. But I don't think I ever had her, but my siblings did. A couple of my siblings had her, I believe. She was teaching first grade.
I actually feared her.
You feared her?
Yeah, she was very strict, and if you didn't toe the line, you suffered for it one way or another. Yes, I got held after school a few times.
Only a few times.
it was all part of growing up.
Yeah, that's true. But she made you toe the line, and that's probably one reason you liked her as a teacher.
Yes, I certainly have respected her from adulthood on.
Mm-hmm.
She came in as a substitute teacher when I was in high school, and she wasn't nearly as successful at that as she was in the country school.
Mm. How did you get to school every day?
Usually walk.
Uh-huh.
In certain conditions, the folks would take us, and it was just about a mile. And I just walked it. I liked it. Sometimes I'd walk it when the other kids would catch a ride, but mainly walking.
Do you remember what it was like at recess? Didn't there used to be more trees there at that school, or not? I think there's one tree there now.
There was a tree there, but I don't remember it being very big. It's a long while ago.
Yeah, I know. I'm fascinated with that school, though. It's a beautiful little building just sitting there like a little jewel on the prairie.
Didn't you go there as a kindergartner?
No, I always went to Nellie Ackerson in town, but my sister Lucy was a student there, 1st through 3rd grade, I believe.
Yes. Yeah, she started there kindergarten, and then it was a consolidation of the schools, and they held 3rd grade classes at a couple of the better country schools, and this was probably the best one. It was a brick building and had a furnace, and they installed bathrooms, and it was the best one in the district.
Really? I didn't realize that. But I remember going to some kind of program there, and maybe it was a Christmas program. I was very young, and I was jealous of my sister because she got to be in this program, but we all went, and I think I remember sitting at a wooden desk to watch some kind of program. That's all I remember. Yeah. But do you remember your best friends at that school?
Best friend in school? I was the only boy in class from the very beginning, from kindergarten, which we called beginners at that time, until through the 8th grade. I was friendly with Reno Feldkamp, our neighbor, not a relative, and he and I spent a lot of time together. We walked to school many times, and we did a lot of things. Don't have to tell you about all of them, do I?
No, but you can tell me about one, at least.
There used to be gophers in the schoolyard, and we'd carry out enough water to drown them out and kill them.
Yeah.
Yeah, Lauren was a good friend. I had other.
When you were in high school.
Hugh Marks.
Hugh Marks. Was he related to the family that ran the Marks and Marks department store?
Yes, his mother worked there. His dad was involved in the management. His dad worked at the bank, and they were a great family. Wonderful family. I spent many nights in their home, and
where was their home?
Across the side of that Union Street from the Emmanuel Church Hall.
Okay.
That house on the corner there.
Well, do you remember any pranks that you played when you... Maybe some you don't want to tell about.
Oh. Pranks. Well, I don't know if you call it a prank or not. We had a pond in back of the buildings, and I would spend just hours looking for a skipping stone that I could skip stones on that pond.
This behind Anton and Lucy's house? There was a pond? Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Then my cousin Leonard Spiegelberg would spend the summer, and we'd do all sorts of things. Holding a funeral and a burial for a cat that had died.
Oh, you did?
Don't ask me why that comes to mind. But, trying to ride the horse. We just had an old draft horse. And I think he had a partner, but we didn't have a saddle or anything, and he was kind of a big old plot of the thing. But, we had a lot of fun with him.
What was his name?
Don.
Don. Mm-hmm. I know that Grandpa farmed with horses. Yes. Do you remember the first tractor that he got?
Yep.
Was it a Farmall?
No, it was a Fordson. And
a Ford.
Yes, but it was a Fordson on steel wheels, and it did not have a self-starter, and it was a very hard starter. Crank and crank and crank to get the thing going. And then later on he got an International. That was used when he bought it. That had a starter and rubber tires, and I enjoyed that tractor. I did not enjoy the Fordson. I was too small. I don't think I ever drove the Fordson. I spent a lot of time on that Farmall.
You spent a lot of time helping Grandpa on the farm. You really grew up helping, and I know that in those days the farmers needed hired hands, and they would live right in the house with the family. That was part of their pay, was room and board.
Yes, we had some hired men that lived in. Benny Kemner, but prior to him, L.B. Kirk, Leonard Kirk, known the whole world as Chick Kirk, but my folks always referred to him as Leonard, and that's how I was expected to refer to him. Mm-hmm. He was a very good family member. He was, but he didn't stay overnight very often. $1 a day.
$1 a day.
$1 a day was standard pay. My dad gave him $1.25 because he was extra good.
Wow. So do you have a favorite memory of the hired hands? One of the hired hands?
Favorite memory of one of the hired men? Oh. In high school, Leonard taught me how to trap, and did a little trapping, and he was good at it, and I got my schooling in trapping, which I did not do as much of as some people, but that's one thing that comes to mind is how he helped me there.
Mm-hmm. And what were you trapping? What were the animals that you were trapping?
Muskrats and then sometimes rabbits, which I don't know how legal that is, but anyhow,
it was a long time ago.
It was a long time ago.
What would you do with the animals that you trapped? Rabbit stew?
The rabbits, they were a delicacy. You'd eat them, and the muskrats, skin them and sell the hide.
Ah, sell the hide.
Mm-hmm.
There used to be a lot more muskrats around than there is now.
Yes.
Do you have a favorite memory of farming with horses? And I'm leading you into this because it's a story that I love to hear about. Was a time when my great-grandfather was helping my grandfather Anton on the farm. Did he help a lot?
He would walk out from. He helped quite a lot. When he was somewhere in his 70s, he slipped off the road, drove off the road, right down on what is Kirk Park there in Manchester now. He drove into the ditch, got out and never drove again. He had failed at something and he didn't like to fail, and so he would walk all the way from town, about 4 miles out to our place. Either that or he would walk up to Uncle Albert Feldkamp's, is northwest of Manchester on Lamb Road. That'd be about 5 miles, and he would walk out. I don't think he ever had to walk home from our place. Quite often my mother would take him home. And the memory I think that you're referring to was we had 2 teams of horses, and my father sent his father, John Tabor, and I was, I don't know, 5 or 6 years old, out to the field, and they got me started to cultivating 1 row of corn at a time. It's just 1 row cultivator, and Grandpa was in the same field, and I was back and forth with that tractor and cultivator.
The tractor or the horses?
No, with the horse.
Okay, with the
horse and cultivator, and the horses knew far more than I did. I mean, they would have made it across just fine without me. But anyhow, I was out there with my grandfather, and I guess we were all proud. I know my dad was, and so was Grandpa, and so was I.
Yes, you were, and so am I. So to have 3 generations out there farming a field all together.
Yeah.
So I know your generation has been described as the greatest generation, but I think of your generation as people that were always working, and it was good work, mostly. And so I wanted to skip way ahead and ask you, how did you, after you had this farm for a little while, you wanted to bring in extra money, and how did you get started in selling?
A man from the armor company came around, and he knew my dad a little bit, and was interested in having my dad sell some fertilizer for him, and he said no. My dad didn't want to because he had neighbors whom he was close to that would put him in competition. But so actually, I think I sold fertilizer about a year before we came to this farm.
Oh.
And that got me started in the selling business.
Okay. And that was Armor Fertilizers at that time.
Yeah, more farmers use armors.
More farmers use armors? That's great.
Then about 1954, there was an opening from the Pioneer Seed Corn Company, and I was fortunate to land that job. The district manager gave me about a 10-minute interview on the telephone without meeting me face to face, and somehow put me on. And it went on from there. 10 years later, there was an opening for a full-time job with him, and we sold a dairy herd, and I tried both jobs for a few years. It was hard keeping up, and the Pioneer job was my main focus, and so I rode that one right out to retirement.
Mm-hmm. And by the time you retired, what was your position at the company? This was Pioneer Seed Company.
District sales manager.
Mm-hmm.
I had Eastern Michigan, and last, as new products were added, they added people, and the territories became smaller, and I was able to be home almost every night.
Yeah, that was great.
Yeah.
I remember you being gone quite a bit.
Yes.
But I was in high school, and
Yep.
there was younger children than me, and it was busy around here.
Yep.
I thought I would go back and ask you, how did you and Mom meet?
There's a dance out at Wampers Lake. There was a dance hall there. Had been there for many years. Your grandparents, Mom's folks, danced there when they were younger, and I saw that long blonde hair across the hall and asked her to dance, and the rest is history.
So, Dad, do you believe in love at first sight?
I do. I do. Your sister Jenny, our youngest, was asked by or was told by a professor that you really had to be in love. We really had to be with somebody for about 5 months to know whether you were in love with them or not. I said, Jenny, I was in love with your mom 5 minutes after I met her. So.
Well, that dance hall is not there anymore, but
No.
when we happen to drive by, we all know the spot where it was.
Yeah.
And it was an important part of the culture in those days. A place for young people to meet. There were dance halls. How many dance halls do you think were within driving distance?
Well, there were a dance hall of one kind or another in Ann Arbor, Adrian, Jackson, and Pleasant Lake north of Jackson, There were a lot of them.
And what bands do you remember coming through? There was lots of bands traveling around.
Tex Beneke and Gene Krupa are the two that I remember.
Gene Krupa, he is very famous now.
You know, Tex Beneke was very good. He picked up on the Glenn Miller band after Glenn Miller disappeared during World War II.
Oh.
And when Bartlett's dance hall out at Jackson Pleasant Lake, that's where we heard the famous bands. A local person, Alan Lukart, bought and owned the dance hall at Wampers Lake, and he attracted just lots and lots of kids. Manchester, some Chelsea, Tecumseh, Clinton, Adrian kids, sometimes some from Detroit, and the place would be packed.
From Detroit?
Yeah.
It must have been very famous for kids who come from Detroit.
Well, the Detroit kids were probably there because living in a summer, their parents might have been in a summer cottage. Mm-hmm. It was a lot of kids around there. There must have been 500 kids around there on a good night.
Wow.
And and one policeman, and never anything very serious as far as trouble is concerned.
Mm-hmm. Well, before we finish, I thought I would let you talk about your mother. Just a favorite memory of your mother. I know you lost her at a very tender age.
Yeah, I lost her at age 13. She like my teacher was strict, but lovable, and the neighborhood kids all liked her, and they frequently called her Aunt Lucy, even though they were not a relative.
They did.
Yeah.
What was one of the favorite meals that she would cook for you?
Oh, chicken.
Chicken.
Chicken on Sundays.
Yeah. What would go with the chicken?
Oh, potatoes and carrots and I don't know, whatever we happen to have.
Yeah. Well, she's so famous in my history too, even though I never met her. And
I don't have a whole lot of regrets in life. The fact that she missed knowing your mom and all you kids is a very low point. Yeah, she was great. I was lucky to have her for 13 years.
Mm-hmm. And she was a Reno, and I've heard people say to you that you've got 2 roads named after you. There's Reno Road, Pleasant Lake Road, and Feldkamp Road.
Yeah. It's okay. I had no responsibility in naming either of those roads, but it's all right. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, she had been born in the house at the corner of Reno Road and Pleasant Lake Road. Okay.
Well, I think we're out of time. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Kathleen.
You're welcome. Okay.